everybody, Charles for HumbleMechanic.com. Today, I'm going to be taking your questions on 4Motion Tiguan's, V6 Passat, becoming a new Volkswagen technician, and more. This is episode 132 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. All right, so to get a question on a show like this, email me, charles@humblemechanic.com, and be sure to put question for Charles in the subject. That is what I use to filter out emails. I get so many emails every day that it's really the only way that I can track what I need to put on the show and what I need to address completely separately. Also, you guys have been doing an awesome job of putting your question in one sentence at the top, hitting the enter button a couple times and then filling in all the details down below. That helps me do a much better job of answering all of your questions. And I reached out to you guys last week and asked you how you wanted me to present even more question and answer type shows. And some of you guys said add another Q&A show. Most of you guys said, hey Charles, grab your cell phone, hold it up, and just do raw, unedited answers to our questions. So that's what I'm going to be doing. There's already a quick answer playlist on my YouTube channel. I'm linking it up right here, so check that out. I will also be adding all of those to that playlist as well. So make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. I will probably upload some of them directly to Facebook as well. So obviously make sure you follow me on Facebook too. So before we get into your questions, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, AC components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory Volkswagen and Audi DSG fluid. I actually shot a DSG video not too long ago, so be on the lookout for that as well. You can check them out at crpautomotive.com. All right, let's get into the questions. Warning, I'm gonna butcher your name. I'm sorry, I'm like a name butchering professional, so I apologize in advance for messing up your name. This one comes from Noradine. Know you get a lot of questions, but I thought I might ask in case you get a chance to include it on your Q&A show. I have a 5-speed 2000 Passat V6 with 140,000 miles. Timing belt was serviced at 70 as well as a PCV system. Car is quite smooth, but I have an oil leak and I need to replace the cam chain tensioner gaskets and half moons. I will do other seals as well. For the front on the driver's side, how do I remove the timing belt to get access and lift the chain tensioner? And also, do I have to replace the tensioner, shoe and pad, or the tensioner itself? Great question. Again, sorry about butchering your name. So you got two questions. How do I get that front cam adjuster on the driver's side off? And do I need to replace the tensioner? Well, you don't have to replace the tensioner or the pads unless you see a reason to. Once you get that valve cover off, do a really good inspection of the shoes and see if there's any damage. There are tiny channels on that plastic that holds the chain. So a little bit of grooving may look weird, but that's actually normal. And you can actually get those shoes on Amazon for like 20 bucks instead of having to replace the whole tensioner if, let's say, you find one that's cracked. The only time I've ever had to replace those tensioners is for two reasons. One is for a check engine light where the tensioner failed, and two, because it made a ton of noise, which generally was a result of engine sludge. So if you're not having those two issues, I absolutely would not replace the entire chain tensioner, because those things are like $600 or $700, which is mind-boggling how expensive those are. As far as getting that front one on the driver's side loose, the way I always did it was just loosen the bolts, and you really have to work to get those parts out. You don't have to take that cover off in order to change that timing chain tensioner and the little half moon. You can do it without taking those parts off. It's not easy, and one thing you need to remember is you need the tool to compress the timing chain tensioner, and then it really works to your advantage if the camshafts are in a certain location, which will actually let you raise that tensioner up a little bit higher than if the tension was all the way pushed on it. So I always rotated the engine around till that tensioner was all the way expanded at the top, and then slowly compress it with the tool, and that seems to give you the most amount of room in order to get the gasket and the half moon out. Again, this is not the easiest thing to do. You do need to kind of work that gasket in and out, being very careful not to bend the metal gasket or punch holes in that silicone half moon piece. So not a terribly hard job all in all, just takes a little bit of finesse, a little bit of patience. Make sure you clean up all the oil. I always recommend adding oil dye to diagnose any further leaks that you might have. So good luck with your repair. All right, next one comes from Vincent. I really dig your videos, man, and I recently started a job at an Infiniti dealership, and one of my buddies there is convincing me to be a tech, and my manager wants me to move to the new Nissan building as a service advisor. But being a tech seems like a lot of fun, but can be stressful at times. What's your opinion or advice on this? Vincent, this is going to be an entire show. I wanted to address this question because it's a question that I get a lot, and there's the technician side and the advisor side, and the advisors think that the technicians are lazy, and the technicians think the advisors are stupid and don't know what they're talking about. The truth is they're both right sometimes. More often than not, they're actually both wrong. Both jobs can be incredibly hard and incredibly stressful. As a technician, you need more. You have to bring more to the table. You have to bring tools to the table. You have to bring training and knowledge to the table to be a successful technician. With an advisor, you don't necessarily have to bring, a toolbox, but you have to bring a lot of different skill sets. And I will tell you, my friends that are service advisors, I feel for you because you guys are absolutely the punching bag of the dealership. You get it from customers, you get it from technicians, you get it from service managers. I feel for you. I think a lot of times, just like technicians, our job gets discounted as being really easy and you're highly replaceable. I understand it, you are not. So I appreciate the hard work that you good service advisors do. The ones that, out there that suck, you guys suck. And that is what it is. Just like technicians, not everybody's going to be a high caliber employee or really, really good at their job. Some people are great, some people are terrible, and there's kind of everywhere in the middle. But this is ultimately your choice, and I'm gonna just do a whole show about this. If I've already done the show, I'll be sure to link it up for you guys to check out, but be on the lookout for that, Vincent, because there's a lot that goes into making that decision. All right, next one comes from Sam. Hey Charles, today I had an interview with a VW dealership. They liked me and offered me a job. The shop foreman wants me to start out as a quick service tech and send me to VW school to learn the technology and car line. What advice do you give to a brand new VW tech? Are there certain methods that VW likes to see or anything I can do in particular to impress and move up the ranks? I will be getting paid flat rate doing oil changes, tire rotations, and PDIs and such. I have been to tech school, but I learned mainly on motorcycles, and I'm in the process of expanding my car knowledge. Any tips would be awesome. Sam, first thing, if you are starting out as a service express, so you're going to be doing oil changes, tire rotations, and PDIs, there's absolutely no way ever I would take that job on flat rate. One, those jobs don't pay anything, right? So an oil change at my dealership pays 0.4. And by the time you add all the other stuff you have to do, filling out paperwork, putting in your notes, quick test drive, top off fluids, air pressure, check the vehicle over, you do not generally make your time on an oil change. Tire rotations you can catch up a little bit on, and as we start to stack these jobs on top of each other is when our efficiency tends to go up. But there's no way I would accept a flat rate job only doing those things and starting out as a new technician. Starting out as a new technician, you should be paid hourly, period. Now, if they are paying you, the flat rate, but are guaranteeing you 40 hours a week, that's a different situation. That's actually what we do with our Service Express guys. So technically, on paper, they are flat rate technicians, but we give them a 40-hour-a-week guarantee. So that way they don't have to worry about making 10 hours a week. So you need to make sure that you have some kind of guarantee before you accept this job, man, because that scares the hell out of me that a dealership would put a technician in that position. Now, they may be doing exactly what I said, guaranteeing you 40, but you need to make sure that that's what's happening. But back to your original question, you need to do everything, right? You need to be the go-to guy. You need to be the guy that never sits down and does nothing ever, period. Always be working, always be doing something, whether it's helping out another technician, cleaning the tool room, picking up special tools, taking the batteries and rotors out. Our Service Express guys do an awesome job of this. They are always doing something. So you want to make sure that you're that guy always doing something. And when you're not doing something physical in the shop to help everybody else out, you need to be doing your online training. Volkswagen has a ton of online training. As a Service Express technician, you're a little bit limited in what you have access to, where it counts towards your certification, but that doesn't mean you can't access all the SSPs, all the self-study programs, a few other web-based trainings, all the quick videos. You need to make sure that you're doing that kind of training because that's how you're going to set yourself apart. You need to make sure that when it's time to go to the fast track program, that you already have all your prerequisites done. If you don't, me as someone that's a manager or someone responsible for your training, I'm thinking this guy doesn't even have his basic stuff done. Why am I going to send him for 2 weeks to Volkswagen training if he won't do his end? So make sure you got that all done. Make sure you're never the guy that sits around. Learn, work hard, do every job that someone asks you to. I know a lot of times, the new guys or the Service Express guys get stuck with really crap stuff they don't want to do. But understand, everybody did that. I did that as a new guy. Every other technician out there, when they started, swept the floors, took out the trash, took out the tires, took out the batteries. We all done it. It's part of, growing up as a technician. So don't think that they're picking on you. It's just kind of, you got to work your way up, like you said, through the ranks. So good luck, man. I hope that this works out for you. Again, work hard and you'll be just fine. All right, next one comes from Nick. Hey, Charles, I have a 2011 Tiguan 4Motion automatic with about 30,000 miles. I was wondering if and when I have to change my transfer case and rear differential oil. I can't find any information in my owner's manual. Most local VW dealerships say there's no need to change the transfer case fluid as it's part of the transmission and just change the halodex. One even told me I should change the rear diff about every 5 years. Even VW Canada was no help. Came across a post on Vortex. Does this seem legit? I'll put a link to the post in Vortex. That's actually a really good post. Whoever did that post, props to you. You put a lot of work into to help the community out, so that's really awesome. Nick, technically you're right. There is no interval for transmission service on your car. There is no interval for rear diff on your car. There is the halodex service on your car. Now, as far as the transfer case being the same oil as the transmission, that's not true. I'm pretty sure that that has its own separate oil. It's kind of its own little box, its own little module. So there is oil that goes into that I'm pretty sure does differ from the transmission fluid. I'm not 100%, but I'm like 95%. This really does bring up the bigger question though of what the heck is lifetime fluid? So Volkswagen says if you own a Tiguan with an automatic transmission, you never need to service the fluid. You never need to drain and fill it. You never need to put a filter on it. You just drive it until it doesn't drive anymore. Well, we need to really define what lifetime is. A lot of times fluid companies will consider lifetime as 100,000 miles. Our coolant is lifetime fluid, which in my head, all of these fluids are lifetime until they fail. Well, what does that mean? It means that when they fail, they're done. So what kind of mileage is that? What kind of, time frame is that? We don't know. So it's up to us as owners to take the guidelines that the manufacturers give us and use our brain to figure out what is best for us. If you have a 4Motion Tiguan and you're towing something, I would want to replace all the fluids at 50, 60,000 miles. I don't think there's any harm in replacing these fluids at a certain interval. Even though one manufacturer says you don't need to worry about it, I would be willing to bet if you contacted the company that makes the fluid for that diff, transfer case, transmission, and said, hey, what do I need to do to service these components on a Volkswagen? They would say, our fluid lasts 100,000 miles. We recommend replacing it at 70,000 miles. So I absolutely hate this idea of lifetime fluid. And part of me feels like it's only built to lower the overall appearance of cost of ownership. I don't have necessarily any proof of that, but that's kind of what my gut tells me. Think about when you're buying this car and you say, hey, when do I need to service the transmission? And the salesman says, you never need to service it. It lasts forever. Well, we all know that's not true. It's not going to last forever. So we have to really use our own brain in doing this. But you are correct when you say that Volkswagen of Canada does not have an interval for any of that stuff other than the halodex, which is 30,000 miles, needs to be drained and filled. The one thing I think may be different on that Vortex post is I don't think in the US our Tiguans have a filter in the halodex. I think that was actually just the older halodex units that had the filter. Other than that, that is a great post. The drain and fill is pretty easy. The drain bolt looks like just another bolt on the unit back there, on the halodex unit, so you want to make sure you're draining the halodex, not the rear diff. If I owned a 4Motion Tiguan and planned on keeping it for, let's say, 150,000 miles, I would probably be changing those in the 50,000 mile range, give or take, that being the diff and the transfer case, and probably the transmission fluid as well. So, Nick, I hope that clears it up. I hope that didn't really just fog up your opinion even more. We can really go down the rabbit hole of some of the nonsense that comes out about fluids. Engine oil really does last way longer than manufacturers recommend to change it, but that doesn't mean that waiting that long is really the best for the vehicle. All right, got time for one more. This one comes from Fergus. I bought a used truck and the transmission failed within 3,000 miles. The mechanic I brought it to removed very dirty motor oil from the transmission. I saw the motor oil on the transmission dipstick before I brought it to him. The GMC Savannah should only take Dextron transmission fluid. The mechanic said putting motor oil in a failing transmission will make it run a little longer so the vehicle can be sold to a rube like me. Do you know anything about scams like this? Unfortunately, yeah. I think a lot of times people also put gear oil in it, like 75-90 weight in it, and that will help the transmission limp along a little bit more. I've heard of like sawdust in transmissions. I've never had the pleasure of duplicating that, although that would be really fun to have a vehicle or probably a fleet of vehicles and really test out those different, old wives' tales or urban legends or myths or whatever, and see which one would limp the transmission along. That's a way bigger endeavor than I think I'm prepared for right here now in 2016, but you know what? Maybe one day that'll be something we can test out. But yeah, absolutely, there's a ton of little tricks that people do in order to limp a car along. Now, we need to be careful. Is this really the selling dealer's fault, or did a customer do this, trade it in, and then the dealership sold it? The truth is, we don't know. And we probably will never ever know who did that to this transmission, or if it's actually motor oil, or maybe really nasty transmission fluid. Maybe they put the wrong transmission fluid in it. We don't really know what happened previously to this vehicle. All we know now is we're stuck with a transmission that's broke down, and we probably feel like we got screwed. So I'm sure the repair is going to be a new transmission for you on your car, or something from maybe a junkyard, which is probably just fine, depending on the miles on the vehicle that it came out of. But yeah, there's a ton of that kind of stuff. Remember, and I've said this before on other shows, everyone trades a car in for a reason. Everyone sells a car for a reason. Is it because they had a kid and the car seat doesn't fit in the truck anymore? Maybe. Is it because they never drive the car and it just, like my cabbie, sits in the garage collecting dust? Maybe. Is it a car that the transmission's been slipping for 25,000 miles and they're finally in a place where they can get a new car? Odds are we're never going to be able to find out the answer to those questions. So it is incumbent upon us to find out the condition of the vehicle as best we can before we buy the car. And I'm not picking on you, Fergus. I'm really not, because this happens to people all the time. They feel like they get screwed, but what did we do before we bought this car? We put a lot of trust, even though we never trust car dealerships, whether it's, a dealership like I work for, that's a really great dealership, or a really small, like 7-car buy here, pay here lot that puts the crappiest cars on the road out there. We don't trust them, but we also don't do what we need to do to make sure that the vehicle, which is the important part, is in the best condition that we can afford it to be in. So I always recommend getting the vehicle inspected by someone not at that dealership, but knows that car line well. For me, I always recommend, hey, take it to a Volkswagen dealership. Take it to a VW Audi specialist. They're the ones that know this vehicle better than anybody. If you take it to a Quick Lube or one of those Universal Auto places, you might get really lucky and find someone that knows Volkswagens inside and out. But odds are you're not going to. Most places don't want to work on Volkswagens and Audis unless they work on Volkswagens and Audis, right? So be careful. It sucks, and I'm sorry, and I hate the situation for you. But again, always remember, before you're buying a used car, or anything really, everyone always sells something for a reason. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you have any questions or comments, as always, post it in the comments section below. Hey, if you like the video, throw it a thumbs up on YouTube. I do really always appreciate that. You can also subscribe on YouTube or on the blog at humblemechanic.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the blog, and obviously right here on YouTube. Oh, and I will be at the Cobalt 400 this weekend in Las Vegas. So if you are going to be there, hey, message me and let me know. I'd love to maybe have a beer with a couple of you guys. There's going to be some really awesome YouTubers there as well. A couple dudes I've never hung out with before, so I'm pumped to see these guys and meet these guys and hang out. More information on that later this week, but again, that will be awesome. So if you're going to be at the Cobalt 400, please let me know. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Early Sunday morning, so coffee as usual.